Remember those new words your dad taught you when he stapled his thumb? Thank him this Father's Day by entering to win Sport Clips Props to Pop sweepstakes at sportclips.com/Father's Day. Sport Clips, it's good to be a guy. No purchase necessary. N616 must be 18 or older. Subject to official rules at sportclips.com. Void where prohibited.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Mike and Mike as we get you set for what could be a really impactful sports weekend, and it's just a weekend in general. So that's the most important thing. Trey Wingo, Mike Golic here. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. I didn't hear anything you said. I was talking.
Yeah,
to
you were
Stan's
talking.
guy.
You were talking.
No
to the
idea
producer.
what you said. You could have called me a bad name, and I
did.
would not have known.
Just so you know, yeah. So people can play that back. I definitely disparaged you like 5 times in those 7 seconds.
All right. Well, we're off to a good start. Then.
We are Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance, and all phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can tweet us at Mike and Mike through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do.
We got a lot to get to. We got great guests, including some guy named Mike Golic Jr.
Yeah, Junior.
Mike Golic Jr.
There you go.
I got it.
There you go.
He will join us at 6:30, a precursor of things to
Uh-huh.
Rick DiPietro will join us, and that'll be a great conversation.
Is there a lot to talk about in hockey.
Especially with the goalie situation with the Nashville Predators.
Yes.
Plus, Stephen A. will join us, so you'll want to turn the volume down a little bit so you can hear it correctly.
Yep.
And Zach Lowe, great writer for ESPN, will join us as well, because it could all come to an end tonight.
Yes, it could.
But before we get into all that, I have to say, I owe you a little tip of the cap.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you acknowledge that.
Yeah, well, it'll be the only time this ever happens.
Is this when I was driving home yesterday and you were walking about a mile away from where we are?
Yeah, well, see, here's the deal. So we're in the digital center in the DC studios, and where all the shows come from.
There's a lot of buildings at ESPN.
And it was not built by Frank Lloyd Wright. Did not build this.
No. It's like, let's try one here.
Yeah. It's just all sort of spread out because they just started making turns.
Yeah.
So it was
like your river and meanders.
Exactly. There's no architectural thought process.
Meandering of buildings.
To the campus area. They just sort of glom on one next to the other.
Yeah.
But there's some certain parking spots right by the newsroom, which is about a half a mile away from the studios.
This studio, but right by where you do all of your work.
Correct. So whenever I've been coming in to fill in on this show, those are the greatest spots. I'm like, I'm right next to the building. This is great. And then I realize I've got to walk through there to get to my office to get over here.
Yeah.
And it takes forever. So we were walking, but we had a meeting about what's ahead coming up, and with all the creative folks and all the people who are going to make it the greatest thing in the history of the world.
Yes.
Wink, wink. And I'm pulling out, and you're already in your car. And you're like, what are you doing parking over here?
I thought you were hitchhiking to your car.
I was way far away from where I needed to be, so I came in 10 minutes early today, and all I did was scope out the parking lot because I was trying to figure out where's the ideal spot to park for to get close, to make the walk closest to here. Yeah, that's the best thing about getting here at 4:15.
Yeah,
is that you there's not really a problem finding a place to park.
No, there is not.
So I went and I did some logistics, and I was looking around. There's here, over here, and I finally figured out there's a little spot right over there. Now, I saw where you parked. You're still pretty far away, but that's because you go through your office on the way back, right?
So you think you found a good spot now?
I think so.
You think you found a great spot for this studio?
Yeah.
Do you understand that you're going to get an office by me?
Yeah.
So do you understand that great spot you got is probably going to change again? Yeah.
Yeah, and we're probably basically all the work I did.
Yeah, all the scouting you did
for the next month and a half.
Yeah,
and then after that, I'm gonna have to do it all over
the window.
Again. Yeah.
I don't like the brown scouting. Did I say that out loud?
Or you could have gone Jacksonville because they have the record for drafting in the top 5 6 straight years.
Good point. Let me go Jacksonville and not my hometown. I take it back from Cleveland and I give it to Jacksonville.
Like Cleveland doesn't have enough to deal with right now.
There you go. That's very true. I'm sorry.
All right. So basically, I took some advice from you and I implemented it. I just did it for no apparent reason whatsoever.
There you go. I'm glad you're listening to me.
Which would sum up my career. What do you say we start with?
Off the top.
Do it on this Friday. So the Pens defeated the Preds 6-0 in Game 5, tied for the second largest shutout in a Stanley Cup Final game since the NHL took control of the Stanley Cup in 1927, Mike.
Yeah, Penguins trying to become the first team to repeat as the Cup champion since the 97-98 Red Wings. This was an interesting game in the fact that it wasn't interesting score-wise. It was an absolute destruction. But DiPietro, when he gets here, the former Islanders goalie, we're going to chat about what do you do with Pekka. He gave up 3. He hasn't beaten Pittsburgh. He's given up between 4 and 5 goals. He gave up 3 last night, got benched, got pulled for that one for Jussi Saros, who comes in.
God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Jussi Saros.
He gave up 3 goals.
Yeah.
But it brings up the question, if they're to win Game 6 in Nashville and they go back to Pittsburgh,
who plays?
Pekka playing.
Yeah.
I mean, are you putting him at goalie? I mean, I have no idea. And Sidney Crosby has 3 assists in this game, has a throw the water bottle on the ice incident, and jackhammered PK Subban's head into the ice.
How about
so
that?
There's a lot to talk about with this game.
Yeah.
He and PK have been going at it. This was at the end of the first period. Both got a minor for it. It was under 2 minutes in the period, so they didn't have to go in the penalty box. They just left because they couldn't go back on the ice. The holding by PK, which his coach denies. At the end of the day, he ends up on the ground with Sidney Crosby
bam,
banging it into the ice.
Yeah.
I mean, literally banging it into the ice. So I don't know where that's going to end up. Certainly nothing's going to happen to Crosby playing-wise. Is he going to get fined? I have no idea. Or are they just going to say, this is hockey, boys. Let's let it go.
Well, I think he's given up his chances for the Lady Byng Trophy for gentlemanly play.
I would never want that award.
It's an interesting award,
No.
and it's really good we'll have DiPietro here on because Pekka has been a different player depending on what building he plays in.
Unbelievable.
He was the reason they won the last game.
Yes.
And then he goes back to Pittsburgh, and he's 0-5 now with the goals against almost 5.
Actually 0-6.
0-6 now. That's right. It was 0-5.
He'd rather be 0-5.
Yeah, well, believe me, he's right. So now we have a chance for the Pens to close it out, although the home team has won every game in this series, and it goes back to Nashville for Game 6. We continue with
Off the Top.
Gary Sanchez clubbed 2 homers off David Price yesterday as the Mets beat Boston 9-1. He now has 4 career homers against Price.
Yeah, 4 career homers, tied for second most against him by any hitters. He only faced 9 times. The only man with more is Jose Bautista, who has 6. So between Sanchez and Aaron Judge, here come the Judge, and Carter knocking out one-handed home runs. They have some. They have a little bit of power hitters, don't they? They do. They can knock the ball out of the park pretty well.
They absolutely do, and the Yankees have been one of the more surprising teams in Major League Baseball this year. They've been fun to watch, and we'll see if they can continue it going forward. Because I don't think a lot of people were expecting this kind of production and this kind of win total from the Yankees so far this season. We continue with
Off the Top.
United States women's national team defeated Sweden 1-0 in a friendly. By the way, there's nothing friendly when the U.S. women play Sweden's women. Let's be clear about that.
No.
That's a rivalry.
Yeah, it ended a 4-game winless streak against Sweden. And the men's national team, they beat Trinidad and Tobago 2-0. They beat both Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, that's
just
one
of them.
Does that count as a doubleheader?
It should.
Right?
It absolutely should.
Yeah.
We are just making a mockery out of this. How about this, though? When your name gets put in with these two,
the
18-year-old Christian Pulisic, had 2 goals, bringing his career goal total to 7. He scored his 7th international goal in fewer games and at a younger age than some guy named Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi.
Yeah, those are good people.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all. So nice job out of him. Nice job out of the men's team who seem to be doing, what are they, 3-0-3 since Arena came back, I believe, right in that area there?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they're moving on.
Mm-hmm.
And
Off
we
the
move
top,
on off the top. Today's June 9th. Some memorable dates in sports history. Some of the events on this date include Secretariat winning the Triple Crown at Belmont, Magic Johnson, the skyhooking game for the finals in 87.
Yeah,
good stuff here.
Yeah, Ray Bork hoisting the Stanley Cup as a member of the Avalanche in 2001. Ken Griffey Jr. hitting his 600th home run back in 2008 when we cared about the home run. And, of course, the pièce de résistance, as they would say, Bobby Valentine wearing the fake mustache in the dugout after being ejected from a Mets game in 1999, sneaking back into the dugout. Just awesome.
I was like, really? You don't think they're going to catch it?
I think he knew it.
You see it on TV right now. It's just the best.
Absolutely
He looks like the creepy uncle at every family gathering.
He really does. Stay away from him.
All right, let's finish up off the top with thing that'll be dominating the show.
Off the top.
It could end tonight. NBA Finals could end tonight. The Warriors are the 13th team to take a 3-0 lead in the NBA Finals. 8 of the previous 12 went on to sweep, including the 07 Spurs against LeBron's Cavs.
Yeah, this is listen, I think this is a pride thing now, as we're going to talk obviously a lot about this from the Cleveland side. And for Golden State, the reality of going 16-0, you put a stamp on the season last year at 73 regular season wins, but you didn't close it out, so it absolutely lost its meaning. But now you're talking about the greatest regular season ever, backed up now by could be the greatest postseason ever. Again, it was the 0-1 Lakers that went 15-1. They only needed 15 wins because the first series was the best of three. They did lose one game to Iverson's 76ers in game one of that finals. But Golden State could go 16-0. I mean, so let the accolades keep on rolling in for that team and for Kevin Durant.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is
Off the Top.
And that's where we'll begin the discussion today. And it's what everyone's talking about, brought to you by DXL, all the brands you love, waist size 30 and up. DXL, you are looking good. Mm-hmm. Now, if you go to DXL, you're looking good. It's not looking good for the Cavs.
No, it's not.
And there are two things at play here. You have a chance, if you're Golden State, to do something that's never been done, 16-0 in the postseason, which is unbelievably remarkable. You go through an entire postseason where you play series. Obviously, in football, you do it every year, but at the most you play 3 games.
Exactly.
So in where you have to play series, that they would do this in the NBA is amazing. Conversely, if the Cavs could find a way to win Game 1 and get a little momentum, and they come back from down 3-0 to win the NBA championship, that's never been done before as well. So as we're looking at this, there are two really unbelievable storylines, one that's more likely to unfold.
Way more likely.
But one that is still a possibility. So my question to you is, what would be more impressive to you? The fact that the Warriors could run through an entire NBA postseason without a loss. In fact, I think they only had one close game. It was the game Wednesday night in Cleveland where they were actually down with 3 minutes to play. They've been blowout city against every other team in the postseason. Or finding a way to win 4 straight games against arguably one of the deepest and most interesting NBA teams we've ever seen.
Well, how do you want to define this? Because if you
in English,
saves me from having to try my Spanish.
Using the English language.
By that I mean, are you looking at it as before a postseason would start? Would you ask me? Is it tougher to go 16-0 or be down in the finals 3-0 and come back 4-0? Because
that's a fair question.
If you're asking me right now, I would say the more impressive would be the Cavs coming back.
Correct.
Because Golden State needs one more win, and Cavs would need 4 straight.
Correct.
So if you ask me that right now, it's Cleveland. But if you asked me that at the beginning of the postseason, which you think would be tougher to do, go 16-0 or be down 3-0 and come back? Both that have never been done, but a team has gone 15-1. Or what would be more impressive? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
more impressive to me is 16-0.
I tend to agree with you, which is why this show is destined to fail, because we're not yelling at each other.
You want me to be different?
No.
Wrong,
no, exactly. You're an idiot, Mike, and I'm going to tell you why.
Anyway,
yeah,
not even for this reason.
That's not even happening. Yeah, okay. But that's the thing. I mean, look. For this Cavs team to come back against the Warriors and win 4 games would be ridiculous. But I don't think people have stewed on this point enough, what it would mean for one team to go through an entire NBA postseason without a loss.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable in this day and age, especially, as you said, when every series is now best 4 out of 7. It used to be 2 out of 3.
Right, exactly.
In the first round. But for every single game, 3 out of 5, sorry, every single game, to come away with a win, that's an incredible amount of mental, I think, strength that goes overlooked in this entire process.
I agree. So let's put it on a poll, Andrea.
Yeah.
Put it on a poll.
Do it.
Yeah. Sorry you're not Guillermo, but, it's next show.
I was about to say.
But we're
heard again.
We're going to steal. We're going to steal from them.
Well, listen,
so how do we do
steal
it?
from the best?
So what's more impressive, going 16-0 or coming back down 3?
Yeah, at the prisoner of the
moment. Coming back 0-3.
Oh, yeah, at the prisoner of the moment as we are right now because of the Cavs team that they're playing, the Warriors, and the depth and the things. I think right now, I'd agree with you. I'd say right now, there's no way they're winning 4.
Well, it's exactly right now. But this would have to be a question asked before the playoffs even started.
Yeah, I mean, remember last year, Golden State went to 7 games in the Western Conference Final. 7 games.
Right.
So you get Kevin Durant, and suddenly you're impermeable. No one can touch them. And it's really, I think I would have to say, in a vacuum or in, not looking at the matchups, just the idea of somebody being able to run through an entire postseason without a single blemish. I would go there.
I would as well. And for Golden State, you heard before the last game, Draymond Green talking about it, basically saying we're not thinking about that. We're thinking about getting the next win to get to 4 wins. And a lot of that is based off of what happened last year. You're up 3-1, and you can't get that last win. You end up losing the series. But now it's all tied together. Now you're in the next game. You go one game. Every cliche, one game at a time. There's only one game we can control. This is the next game. Win this game. And, oh, by the way, that game brings you to 16-0. So now it comes part and parcel with it. So now that goal is staring at you, and you can talk about it because it comes with the game, the last game that you have to win. Once you win, they're going to win it. It's just a matter of when. Why not win it now? Make yourself 16-0. Make a little bit of history. And this time, though, the history actually leads to a championship.
Correct.
Unlike last year where you made history, but then you couldn't close the deal. So in everybody's minds, including Golden State players' minds, that gets diminished, correct? I mean,
yes.
Still a great regular season, but you didn't cap it off, so it absolutely gets diminished.
Okay, so let's spin this forward now. And again, we'll put that out there. We'd love to get your responses on the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, at Mike and Mike, at ESPN Golic, or at Wingos. Let us know what you think about that specific thing. Not so much as it relates to this matchup, but in general.
Right. In general, before a postseason.
Before a postseason began, what would you consider to be more impressive? So let's start now with the Game 4. Tell me what you do if you're Cleveland, because I think the hardest part for tonight, obviously you're going to say, let's dig deep and find some pride, but you know what? Pride isn't going to put the bucket in the basket.
It's not.
What can they do to try and get one game?
So when you get away from, all the meaning behind all of it, of getting swept or the other team in Golden State going 16-0, you sit there and you look at the game and you say, listen, we're up, 7 with 3 minutes to go?
I think 6.
Was it 6? We're up 6 with 3 minutes to go. We played these guys tough. I mean, I would be banging my head against the wall for the fact of how well they played in the first quarter until LeBron sat.
And lost down by 7.
Still down 7 after shooting like 61%. It was ridiculous. But they were up. They had a great third quarter. What you do in the playoffs, this is what I always found in professional sports, is when you get to the playoffs, it's all about building up, not about criticizing. I'll sit there in a game film in the regular season, even after a good win, and we will get butchered by the coaches. Yep. Bad mistakes in a loss, even, lackadaisical play in a win, you get destroyed. It's more criticism, constructive criticism, but yelling at nonetheless. When you get to the playoffs, it's not as much ripping as it is, okay, that happened, now how do we – it's all more positive build-up for the next game. In football, it's a game every week, obviously, but in the series sports, game every other day or whatever it is, it's all about the positive build-up. So there isn't going to be the negative talk, we're down 3, we don't have a shot, oh, my God, what are we going to do, just go hoist the ball up? It's going to be, hey, we started out the game well, we had a great third quarter, we hadn't had a great third quarter before, now we did, we had the lead with 3 minutes to go. What do we have to do to build on that? All we can do is try and get the one win. Let's close that out. We're 3 minutes away from closing it out. We just got to make a shot. 5 of us took shots. All 5 of us missed all our shots. We've got to be able to make a shot. We have to be able to do better there. Other than that, Trey, what are you going to fundamentally change? You're not going to fundamentally change
Larry
anything.
Bird ain't walking through that door.
No,
Magic Johnson ain't walking through that door.
This is what you are. When you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, you have guys who are offensive guys who don't play defense well, or defensive guys who don't play offense well.
Right.
And Golden State, they do both. Yeah. So for the most part, they do both. That's just where you are right now.
But the interesting thing about that is, I think the biggest reason that the Warriors do both well is because they make more shots. And when you make more shots, it allows you to get back better on defense.
Sure, it does.
That's been honestly one of the biggest things I've noticed in this series. Is that Cleveland can't get back and play their defense as much as they like because they're not hitting as many shots.
Right.
I mean, obviously, even when they did in that first quarter of Game 3, they were still down 7.
They were. That was the amazing thing to me, is how well they were playing. But then again, LeBron went to the bench and the 5 on the court, it looked like they didn't know what they were doing anymore. Talk about a missed shot and transition. You need to go no further than LeBron dishing it to Korver, he missing it. Kevin Durant getting the rebound, going down and popping the 3, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah.
Take the lead with 45 seconds to go, and you're down 3-zip. So I don't see a lot of difference. I just think the guys that are supposed to make shots have to make shots, and that's what I live off of. You were right there at the end. 3 minutes ago, we're winning. We've got to be able to close that out. All we can do is try and get the one tonight.
Right. The mental aspect, I think, more than anything else, is going to be the challenge for Cleveland tonight. Without question, because that's the other thing. No matter how well you're playing, right.
No matter how well you're
playing,
like
you can't make a scintilla of a mistake.
Yeah, and they're just a few shots away of taking how good you were playing it and stomping on it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just that's. I mean, I think the when people talk about fatigue, I don't think they talk about mental fatigue.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Because that's what breaks you.
Oh, without a doubt. Without it. You think you play good defense. You think you do well, and they throw up a long shot and it drops. I mean, these have guys that can make it. You think you're covering your guy, then this guy gets a shot, and he makes it. You can't cover them all.
Yeah.
So you try and take out the ones you want to take out, and the other guys, if they beat you, they're going to beat you. They have the guys that can beat you.
Eventually at some point, I do believe there will be a 30 for 30 on this 3-year run between the Warriors and the Cavs meeting in the finals.
It may not be a 3-year run. It may be a 4-year run.
I was about to say, this could go on for a while.
Right.
Because right now you can make the case that if Cleveland does nothing, I think they're at least guaranteed to go back to
They'll be back there again, yeah.
And probably the prohibitive favorite to go into the finals again. And sure doesn't look like Golden State's slowing down anytime.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are looking at wondering if Chris Paul will go to San Antonio and if that's going to be something that could turn the tide at all, given the fact of how well San Antonio did in Game 1 before Kawhi got hurt.
Absolutely, and so that's a potential future 30 for 30. We got the 30 for 30 two-parter coming up next week.
Yes, we do.
80 Celtics and Lakers, which is just going to be awesome for guys of a certain age.
Yeah.
Us.
And
kids, watch it. You'll learn something. And there are some stories that you just have to hear to believe, including the 30 for 30 podcast. All new stories from the producers of the acclaimed 30 for 30 series. Subscribe now in the Listen tab of the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts.
The best of Mike and Mike.
There is no way, if I'm coming in to do this show, which will be happening, that I'm going to get up even earlier to come on just to talk to my son for a little bit on the radio.
Yeah, no, threw me a lifeline there. Desperately needed. Playing hurt today.
Oh, yeah, all right.
A little bit of a tickle in the throat area.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, then we're going to be quiet and you just do the rest of this.
I can carry this one with 3 hours of radio the other morning coming off of an NBA Finals gut punch was exactly what the doctor ordered for the throat. So
that's what I love. After a Finals game, they started a show an hour earlier. They start at 3 a.m. Eastern time, which certainly makes all the sense in the world.
That's a big
talk that extra hour 3 in the middle of the night.
We get Freddie and Fitz that go for an extra hour on the back end of theirs, and then so before Ian goes home and pours himself a good drink coming out of the setup he's got in the garage there, we're coming into the studio in a lot less finer form.
Yeah, a lot less drink in you.
Yes.
Well, that's a lesson I learned this week.
Yes, it is.
That's a lesson I learned this week.
There's some adjustments.
We'll get into all of that.
Yeah.
We'll get into all of that. But now let's get into the thing at hand, and that is it could end tonight. Cavs trying to avoid being swept. Warriors going for the first ever 16-0. And we've been talking about this, and we put it on the poll question, Junior. Look, obviously right now, because of the way the Warriors are playing, if I ask you what's more impressive, going 16 straight undefeated in the postseason in the NBA or coming back from 3 games down, which has never been done in the finals to win it, I think a lot of people would say as prisoners of the moment, clearly if the Cavs could do that, that would be the more impressive. But say the start of the postseason. All right, before this all began, I said to you, what would be more impressive? The fact that one team would go through the entire NBA postseason, which would be the Warriors, without a single loss, or someone would eventually come from 3 down to win the NBA championship. What would you say is more impressive?
I think it's if somebody would come down 3-0 is a lot different than what we've seen. And it's impossible for me to now not have the context of these two teams.
Right.
Because once we've seen how dominant Golden State can look against what we knew was the other runaway best team in the league before we ever had tip-off of Game 1 in the regular season. God, in that vacuum, I'd still probably have to say 3-0 just because it's the finals. So you assume you're getting the two best teams.
Right.
And we knew we hadn't seen 3-1 until last year. 3-0 even more uncharted.
3-0, but you don't really see a sweep in the finals either. Unless, I guess, you're LeBron. You saw a sweep some years back against San Antonio
and by the way, we'll have Stephen A. on later, and he said some things that I just think are –
we're going to disagree with?
We're going to disagree. Well, I don't know about you. I'm going to disagree with it.
We were talking before the show. I'm going to disagree as well. But as far as – I think we're going to have a tough time with this poll question, because I think, Trey, most people are going to be prisoners of the moment.
We're asking you to expand your mind, people.
We are, because
expand your mind.
The first sheet of tweets we got, everybody's saying coming back from 3-0. Yeah. Everybody, I just forget even reading them. Every one of them has said coming back from 3-0, and I get that right now. right, without question, it would be the more impressive thing. But at the start of the playoffs, even as good as Golden State was, to sit there and say they would go 16-0.
It's close, Mike, right now. Well, not close, but it's not a blowout. It's 59-41. Now, that would be a landslide in an election.
Yes, it would.
But I think we can manipulate the 41% a little
Oh, so you guys are trying to doctor the results of this poll?
Without question.
Okay.
We just want to make it more interesting.
It's all about making us look right.
Can I say
that
this?
That is a fact.
Yeah, that's. I think you would have had a lot easier time with this before this season, because we knew at the start of the season, what was everyone predicting? Going to be Cavs and Warriors,
right?
Again. And even saying at the start of this playoffs, we knew going into the playoffs that these were by far the best two teams. So if you'd have told us LeBron James and the Cavs would have gone undefeated through the East, I think people would have thought that more likely than Golden State through a more difficult road in the West.
You're critiquing us because we didn't ask this at the start of the season.
No, I'm just saying that's the context that you need for this to succeed. I'm trying to help you manipulate this today.
We're trying to tell people we're trying to give them the context.
And that's what I'm trying to tell you. That's how you need to frame it for people.
That's what I just said. Did you listen to what I said?
Yeah, but I said it's smarter. No, I don't.
See, this is, I believe, how it went from 6th to 8th grade, if I'm not mistaken, right?
When they're teenagers,
man. They tune you out. You could say, I had the same problem with Chap.
Yeah.
You could say, hey, boy, look at that blue sky. He'd say, it is green.
Yeah, it's exactly
There's an era where you could not do anything. Yeah. You could say whatever you want, and they would automatically take it.
They say at some point your kids really understand what you were doing and appreciate you. I'm still waiting for that.
Yeah, I think that'll be.
You're going to wait longer on the other two kids in our house than you are on me.
That's good.
No, why do you say that?
Oh, you want to talk about the issues with that?
Yeah, they're problematic.
We don't have enough time in the show?
No, not enough time in the show. Okay. Jake and Sydney, by far the bigger culprits on that. I'm more than willing to call them out on that.
Well, I'm glad that once again we've devolved into Golic family squabbles on our national radio show.
We are.
But let's bring it back.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back to what we're talking about here, and that is the idea of the 16-0 more impressive than coming back from 3 games down. But to your point, I think you're right. We all thought that this was going to be where it ended up. But I think we all had this expectation going into it that this was going to be an epic finals.
We built it to that. It's like 2 weeks before the Super Bowl.
It's like someone popped the balloon with a pin.
In the balloon, yeah.
It's just not there. So does that change the dynamic anyway when you look at these two accomplishments?
Well, it just makes you wonder. To me, it makes you wonder going forward what's going to happen, because Golden State team not going to change for a couple of years.
Nope.
They're going to keep their pieces together.
Yep.
So I think this whole offseason is going to be, where does Chris Paul go to San Antonio from the West to see if they could be matched there? Again, people clinging to what Game 1 was with San Antonio when Kawhi Leonard was healthy before he got hurt, and could Chris Paul help there? And then the others is, what will Cleveland do in the offseason? Because we were talking about this before, Mike. Trey and I said Cleveland can do nothing, be back in the finals, and be heavy underdogs again. Or do they make that move? What move do they make in the offseason that tries to get them to compete in this series?
Yeah, we've heard a lot about who they might bring in. Paul George is a name that's come up that seemed like a foregone conclusion for Los Angeles for so long when he had the chance to finally opt out of his contract, which I believe was 2 summers away. But now I know I heard Amin El-Hassan, our NBA insider, talking about who the Cavs might need to get rid of on their team in order to make a lot of this happen. And he said Kyrie and Kevin Love should both be on the chopping block at this point, just because of what you need to do to match up with Golden State. I'm not ready to sell Kyrie just because I think you've got to plan a little bit for life after LeBron.
Yeah.
And he's 25. He's in the prime, and he's getting all of these reps on this big stage right now, and is kind of self-serving as LeBron's comment seemed when he was talking about that. Him bringing these guys along has served them to that end.
Yeah, Kevin Love's been on the chopping block for 2 years, so you would expect that move to probably happen if they're going to try and mix it up a little bit.
Well, I get it and I understand, but Love does so much of the dirty work. Like, his shots were off in Game 3. He only scored 9 points, but he had 6 steals. He had a bunch of boards. I mean, you need a guy like that. He just needed to make more shots.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
We continue on hour number 2 of Reasonably Take Nuanced Radio.
Calling me an idiot sounded like I was at home for a minute.
I was about to say we've already had that. We've already been down that road in the first hour. Mike and Mike, Trey Wingo here with Mike Golic and Mike Golic Jr. on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and we are presented by Progressive Insurance. Do not forget, good people, we're giving you the Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. It sure feels like the NBA Finals are going to end tonight with the way the Warriors have completely dominated the Cavs and the finishing kick that the Cavs didn't have in Game 3. We'll get to that in just a little bit.
Right.
But Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final between the Pens and the Predators was perplexing for a variety of reasons. And, again, Rick DiPietro, former NHL goalie, will join us at the bottom of this hour. We'll get into the goalie situation,
right.
Pekka Rinne, and why in one building he can look like Clark Kent and in another building he can look like Superman.
It's unreal. It's absolutely unbelievable. It gets pulled last night after 3 goals, and they go back to Nashville. Well, he'll probably be great, and I hope it goes to a Game 7.
And then what do they do?
That's what we'll talk to Rick about in a little bit.
But there are a couple of other things to get into in the game last night, which the Pens won 6-0. And they mostly involve Sidney Crosby.
Right.
Okay. So Sidney Crosby had his 56th career multi-point playoff game, which is tied for 4th most in NHL history. Now, I want to read the list of the top in NHL history. The most multi-point playoff games. Well, obviously, Wayne Gretzky, number 1 at 108.
Yes, he is.
Spent most of his career as an Edmonton Oiler in the 80s. Second on that list, Mark Messier, who spent most of his career as an Edmonton Oiler in the 80s. Next on that list is Jari Kurri, who spent most of his career as an Edmonton Oiler in the 80s.
He could score.
Then there's Sidney Crosby. Then there's Glenn Anderson, who spent most of his career as a Edmonton Oiler in the 80s, followed up by Paul Coffey, who spent the majority of his career as an Edmonton Oiler in the 80s. In other words, the 80s Oilers were really, really good.
Scored a lot
at
of goals.
Scoring a lot of points.
Yeah.
So congratulations to crashing the party, Sidney Crosby. And speaking of crashing the party.
Yeah, he crashed.
There was that little duet, if you will. That the minuet, the dance between P.K. Subban of the Preds and Sidney Crosby, and this has been going back and forth with the Listerine and bad breath and all that kind of stuff. They clearly do not like each other, but at the end of the first period, they both got minors, and it sure looked like somebody should have gotten more of a minor because Sidney Crosby spent the majority of 10 to 15 seconds with Subban underneath him, pounding his head into the ice as if it was a pneumatic hammer trying to break up concrete.
It was amazing. And, you always try and get away with things if the ref's not looking. The ref is 3 feet away.
He's staring him right there.
Staring at him, watching. He stays. You can see the ref's legs while he's bashing PK's head into the ice. So, are we going to say this is hockey? And I get it. And listen, there may not be tougher athletes in the world out there. I know, listen, rugby players, MMA, I get all that. But these guys, are as tough as they come. There's no doubt about it. Crosby, though, not really known for a whole lot of that, but PK's been just been.
That's what he does.
That's
He's the
exactly
instigator.
Right. So they both get called for holding. They both, the minor, but it was under 2 minutes in the period, so they both left the ice anyway. They couldn't come back on. But you wonder, Mike, in this league, and Barry Melrose really kind of played it down, saying you're not going to do anything to stars of this league. But in this day and age where you're more involved in head injuries and more cognizant of head injuries, watching a one-man bang another man's head into the ice repeatedly, boy, you just wonder if anything comes of this at all.
Well, and we learned last time that apparently the ice is the only thing that can send you into the concussion protocol.
Right.
So
the ice or someone's elbow.
The ice or someone's elbow, or the combination of the two here. And yeah, listen, there's certainly that glaring inconsistency where we care way more about concussions in one sport than we clearly do in this sport. Because if that similar situation had happened on a football field where the surface isn't basically like concrete, we're singing a completely different tune already. But that's the popularity of the sport. That's a number of other things.
Exactly.
My question is we talked about, we heard from Barry, and it could have been referring to, because Sidney Crosby also tossed a water bottle out on the ice.
Right.
But talked about not wanting to get your stars off the ice, not wanting to do that. It seems like you go out of your way to protect one star more than the other because P.K. Subban, while he's not the player overall that Sidney Crosby is by any stretch, he's a star and he's a big
That's
name
exactly
in
right.
a burgeoning
Both of those
hockey
things.
town.
Yeah, he is.
So why wouldn't you want to protect that guy just as much? Because if this is shoe on the other foot, we're sounding the alarms. We're calling for the National Guard.
banging Crosby's head into the ice?
Yeah. And I guarantee the word association gets a little bit different there, too. No one's going to stand up and call Sidney Crosby a thug right now, but I guarantee if the shoe's on the other foot here, all of a sudden we have some weird word association that comes with a different territory.
Well, not only that, but let's be honest, Sidney Crosby is a guy who's dealt with his concussions his entire career.
Right.
I mean, he's had majority of time in his NHL career taken away because of head injuries. So if anybody would be apparently sensitive to the idea of not banging somebody's head into the ice, you think it would be Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, and you know what? We know a lot of this stuff in hockey. I love it in the stop in action when there's the hitting of the stick. You used to see all that face washing all the time. It's a physical kind of, I'm going to get you type of sport. I get it. We don't see the fighting, in the postseason, certainly, than the regular season. Yep. And I'm sure there are going to be many, and maybe DiPietro will be one that says that's just hockey. And it very well may be. Did it look like the worst thing in the world that you've ever seen? No. But
optics frame everything.
In this day and age of where we are, when you see a guy banging another guy's head into the ice, it takes on a different look nowadays.
It doesn't really even matter to me all that much, the players, because I get that. I mean, we played O&D line. That's a dime a dozen around those parts. I had someone actually try and lecture me about that this morning. I was like, no. I lived there. I know what goes on in that house, but to me, it's less about what goes on there because it's a sport where there's pushing and shoving after almost every play, and it's awesome, and I love that.
Right.
My point is the league, because what you're trying to spin out of this, like hockey's ratings have been up during the Stanley Cup Final. Things have been going well for them. You've got Nashville, Smashville, making waves in that scene in a big, big way. Why not capitalize it and try and take the next step in making your sport even more mainstream popular? Is what does every other sport do? Market your stars. And you got a guy in P.K. Subban who's unique personality-wise in a sport where you're not really rewarded for having a personality.
Absolutely. And by the way, we're not the only ones wondering why the calls went the way they did. This was Nashville head coach Peter Laviolette. I don't understand the call. I saw my guy get his head cross-checked into the ice 10 times. I don't even know what he did. So you're not alone. We're all in this together. And it's not bashing Sidney Crosby. It was just
right.
It was just an odd optic.
What are we calling it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you know what we're calling it? We're calling it the MVP moment of the week.
As we should.
Because those two are the biggest stars probably for their team. Brought to you by Sport Clips. You watch sports. We cut hair. It's perfect. Sport Clips. It's good to be a guy. Speaking of perfect or almost perfect, I think we need to talk a little bit more about team building in the NFL and the way the New England Patriots go about it, because they do it better than maybe anyone I think I've ever seen, especially obviously in the free agent era, the way they attract stars, the way they retain stars, but perhaps more importantly, the way they pay stars. Julian Edelman, who had that unbelievable catch where the ball was just sitting there off the turf, brought it back and made the catch to keep I think that was the game-tying touchdown drive alive before they went to overtime in Super Bowl 51. Just got a 2-year or 3-year contract extension. It's decent money. It's not break-the-bank
it's
money.
$5 million signing bonus. Could be up to $11 million.
Exactly.
$15 million.
And it begs the question, why doesn't everybody do it the way the Patriots do it? Tom Brady is still underpaid by any measurable standard of a franchise quarterback. And, oh, by the way, he got one for the thumb. And he's the only quarterback to have one for the thumb. Only Charles Haley and Tom Brady have 5 Super Bowl rings. Everybody in New England stays for less money. And I get that because you have the aura of Bill Belichick, and the resume is spectacular. But they never overpay for everybody. Tom Brady's not getting that 5th ring if Dante Hightower doesn't go up with a strip sack fumble that allowed them to cut it to 8 points with 7.5 minutes ago, and suddenly there was or about 4 minutes ago, and suddenly there was a ball game, okay? They let Dante Hightower go. They basically said, you go test the free agent market and see what you like, and if you want to come back, we'll come back at this price. He came back. The Patriots have perfected this way of building a team in the NFL in terms of not overpaying anybody. Why don't more teams do it the way New England
Well, what's
does
the draw? I mean, the draw to go back to New England, if you're going to take a little bit less money, is
you play to win the game.
You're going to win the division, and you're going to have a great shot in the playoffs to go to the Super Bowl. If not, you're going to go grab all the money you can grab. What's the incentive to go to a losing team make them pay you more to go there, and you can line your pocket. So I think that goes a lot into the situation, and I think a lot depends on where you are in your career. Yeah. Have you not gotten that big payday yet? Do you want to go get it somewhere? Have you made a lot of money?
This was Hightower's chance to really kick the can.
Now, okay, what I don't know, what did Hightower get offered anywhere else? Was it enough? Was it? Maybe it wasn't enough over what New England was going to pay to make it worth as well. Okay, I can make an extra however many bucks. If it was substantial, I bet he'd have been gone.
Yeah.
That's just my thought.
And you've got the leverage that affords you the position to do that because, to your point, you can't discount the Patriots' resume because they've bet on themselves over and over again that says, we can do it without you. We don't think we need you. The only guys that we need are Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, and Tom Brady. And you've got a guy in Tom Brady with a unique situation that Aaron Rodgers hinted at the other day. Like, we all joke about it, but that Giselle factor is probably pretty real and why he's always willing to take a little bit less money. And when you've got a quarterback that's not going to make you break the bank the way Tom's never made them do it, it lets you do a number of other things. That's why you see teams know they're on the clock. Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock with that rookie contract before they got to back up the Brinks truck for him and Zach Martin and everyone else around there, because when that money gets long for the guys that you know you just have to pay to have a chance, it gives you a lot less leeway everywhere else, and that's where the Patriots always win.
Look what happened with Russell Wilson getting his money. What happened after Flacco got his money in Baltimore?
Well, it fell apart.
You don't want to sit there and blame the quarterback and say you're the butt.
Players should get whatever they want.
When you give that money out, now you are really manipulating that salary cap, where if you get lucky with a third rounder like Russell Wilson, a fourth rounder like Dak Prescott, and you don't have to pay those guys for a while, man, you can do so much more.
But this goes back to even before Bill had the credibility, which is what I find interesting. Remember in 2001, he benched Bledsoe for Brady, and Bledsoe was livid. I remember that. I'll never forget that soundbite. We ran it on NFL Live when you were now doing it all those years ago.
Yeah.
I look forward for the opportunity to compete to get my job back. And then Terry Glenn. He wouldn't play Terry Glenn and he was the game-breaking wide receiver they had. He found another way. And then they cut Lawyer Malloy before the season began. That's another thing. I've never seen Teddy Bruschi after a game when they lost the first game of the year 31-0 in Buffalo. He was furious, and the team was, because Lawyer Malloy was one of their guys. He was the glue guy, and they went back to the Super Bowl and they won it anyway without him. I mean, this is the brilliance of Belichick, is that he's figured out a way, or he has multiple systems. I don't want to say he has a system because they have different game plans every week depending on who they're playing. They do it better than anybody because they look at these guys as interchanging parts.
Right.
They won games with Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett last year at quarterback. One of the reasons we're bringing this up because Odell Beckham obviously is looking for the big payday.
And he's going to
get it, but what point do you break the bank for someone when you see somebody else doing it? Whoever thought that Chris Hogan would be an invaluable piece of a Super Bowl championship team?
Are you saying don't pay Odell that money? Say this is all we have for you?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I wonder when other GMs and coaches and front offices will say, let us look at the way the Patriots have done this, and is it something that we can do as well?
Which is interesting because really the market's set for a lot of the top players, and New England just doesn't have them. Because New England has nobody on their roster that's equal to Odell Beckham, and they're not going to pay a guy like Odell Beckham. So I get your point.
And we talk about that all the time because they do a good job late in the draft when you get those caliber of players in free agency and with the undrafted free agents that you bring out there.
Yeah, I mean, look at Brandon Cooks, for example. They got him on a rookie contract.
Right.
Before he ever played a dime for them, they've already picked up his fifth-year option. So he got his fifth-year option picked up before he even played a single snap with them. And if he thinks he's going to break the bank in New England, good luck with that. You know what they'll do? They'll have him for 2 years.
Yeah, they will.
And they'll say, here's what we're going to pay. If not, you'll go somewhere else. And then they'll find somebody else. So, and Brandon Cooks is an exceptional receiver. Don't get me wrong. I think since they came into the league, only Odell Beckham Jr. has more, whatever they are, 25-yard touchdown catches than Brandon Cooks. He is a lift litter on defense. He's a guy that can break open a coverage at any time you want. But you know what they'll do? As long as Bill's there, as soon as he goes away, they'll find somebody else and plug it in for a convenient dollar.
I'm trying to think, has a player left there of his own want to in free agency and broke the bank somewhere else. I mean, basically it was them getting rid of the Richard Seymours of the world and the Rodney Harrisons of the world, right?
Yeah.
Before they made that monster money there. I'm trying to think.
Well, in fact, they had the one big signing was a Dallas Thomas in 2007. He came over from Baltimore, and it didn't work out. Yeah. I think they cut him the next year. I think he was only there 2 years. And it's almost like they learned, well, let's not do that.
Well,
again.
they did play Stephon Gilmore this year.
Yeah.
Right?
They paid Gilmore a different deal, but they still haven't paid Malcolm Butler.
No, they haven't paid Malcolm Butler. But
it's amazing.
I guess has anybody left there as a free agent and gone and signed big money somewhere else?
No, because, again, to your point, they're doing it with guys that don't necessarily mandate that kind of payday.
Yeah.
And then when you do have guys that they've built up to that star status, they let everyone know no one is above the chopping block around here except for Tom.
Yeah.
No one is above all that, and we'll even see eventually when that hits a line, when they decide, all right, if we gotten enough out of him, are we going to cut bait? Because I think Tom Brady finished his career in a different uniform.
If he wants to play till 42 or 43 or 44,
exactly.
I agree with you.
They're going to get rid of him before that. And to the point, we see the players leave all the time. You mentioned the system, Trey, that other people would try and replicate. How many assistants have we seen leave New England and try and go do it elsewhere? Yeah. Like, this goes back to a guy. These guys know how the sausage is made in there, and they still can't make the same
Weiss, Crennel, Josh McDaniels in Denver was a complete disaster. I think that's one of the reasons he turned down the San Francisco job. He couldn't afford to have a second failed coaching.
Bill O'Brien.
Yeah. Now Bill's done it okay, but he still hasn't had a quarterback. He's won the division 2 years in a row. Like, the only guy that left and got paid was Matt Castle. He went.
That's right. When he went
to Kansas City,
came in after when Tom got hurt in the first game. That team went 11-5 that year.
And remember,
didn't make the play.
But remember, they won 11 games with Matt Castle.
Yeah.
As a quarterback. And that year, I'll never forget this because it was 2008, the year Brady went down. That year, Matt Castle did something that Tom Brady had never done in his career: back-to-back 400-yard passing games. Now, he's done that since then, but that's what's in place in New England. They got back-to-back 400-yard passing games out of Matt Castle, who had not started a game since high school.
I guess to answer your question of why doesn't everybody else do it like them, because they can't.
Yeah.
Because they're not as good.
Yeah, but
right?
It's funny. We always talk about this being a copycat league. Copy them. If you're going to copy what they are doing.
What's going to be tough is they've been doing it forever. All these other players, star players, have been paid. How are you going to all of a sudden not pay them anymore? You know that's not going to happen in New England. Other places are going to shell it out.
It's a remarkable thing. Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance. More independent agents sell Progressive Insurance than any other brand. Find an agent at Progressive.com. Now that's Progressive. So what the Patriots are doing is progressive. Everyone else is trying to be progressive. And then there's the Jets.
Oh, boy.
This came in. Again, these are OTAs, so you have to take them with a grain of salt, but this one was quite stunning. According to Connor Hughes of NJ.com, talking about Christian Hackenberg, the second-round pick from a year ago, who was redshirted last year, and they don't really have a quarterback for the future, so they got to figure out what they've got. This is what Connor Hughes had to write on NJ.com about Hackenberg. Quote, "When Hackenberg misses, he really misses. He threw just 2 interceptions in team drills, but nearly tossed 6 others. And I'm not talking about a receiver falling down. I'm saying the defender just dropped the ball. Other times, the wideout / running back / tight end was wide open, and Hackenberg sailed it over his head or bounced it to him. That can't happen. In 3 media open OTAs, Hackenberg hit reporters with passes twice."
And they also said he did throw some nice passes. A guy's got a strong arm. There's no doubt about that.
Just ask the reporters that got beat.
Yeah, they got
hurt a lot.
I was a little surprised last year, a second-round pick, that they didn't feel at any point they were going to put in a game. That, you started looking at a guy like Goff, who was the first pick overall, and it took him a while to even feel confident to get him in a game. But Hackenberg, and then you think, okay, it's the offseason now. They'll work him in and get him going. I've been amazed at this. I've really been amazed at what they've done there, and then bringing in Josh McCown, who's 37 years old, to kind of bridge wherever they were going to go. And everybody thought they were going to pick a quarterback at 6. They didn't. Jamal Adams jumps. It falls into their lap, I should say. I don't know what's going to happen there, and I don't know if they're just playing the Sam Darnold, Wheel of Fortune, for
all in
year.
for 2018. Well, there's 3. There's Josh Rosen and Josh Allen as well.
Right.
And then Mason Rudolph apparently is going to get some looks as the Oklahoma State quarterback.
Yeah, it's getting pretty interesting. You know what? It feels like to me the Jets got us right where they want us.
Suckering us in?
Oh, suckering us. It's rope-a-dope right now. And for Christian Hackenberg, we're talking about him. We probably wouldn't have been otherwise. It's like what Brett Favre did when he came into the league. He said, I tried to throw every ball as hard as I could so they would notice me popping off the tape. Christian Hackenberg is spraying him. He's letting everyone know, I got this cannon right here. Everyone can catch some of this, even you reporters that are going to go badmouth me right after.
It's just look.
Well, there's a point of view.
Yeah, hey, listen, I'm telling you, not enough people are talking about that. It's brilliant.
The best of Mike and Mike.
We move on with Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented, of course, by Progressive Insurance. And all phone guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And then there are just guests that appear. Like your son, last segment.
Everybody's appearing.
Yes, well, that's, we're a draw. People don't want to talk about it.
Heard that.
We're a draw. And we are delighted to draw in Rick DiPietro, former NHL goalie. This is one of the great names of any radio show I've ever heard. Han, Humpty, and Canty.
Yeah. From
ESPN 98.7 FM in New York. Joins us in studio giving the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contract.
So you're Humpty.
I'm Humpty, like Humpty Dumpty.
You're going to have to explain that to everybody, why you're Humpty.
All right, so I'm actually Howard Hughes style in my basement, deciding if I'm going to retire or not. Don't want to talk to people. So Alan Hahn, who is the host of the show, drags me out of the basement and says, you should try this radio thing. I think you'll be good at it. So we did it. We kept doing it. Our tagline after every show was, we'll keep doing it until they kick us off. Haven't kicked us off yet. And I was, say, a voyeur on Twitter. Never would tweet, but I had to get an account. So I went with, because I'm always hurt and the doctors couldn't put me back together, Age Dumpty. So he made me actually say my Twitter handle on one of the shows. It stuck, and I think it's kind of strategic. So if the show fails, it's Humpty's fault. No one knows who I am.
So
we're back together again.
Nice.
I like
Start the Rick DiPietro show.
By the way, we also need to bring you down to our level.
Really,
you have put it together. You've got the tie, the jacket, the grooming is all tremendous.
Nicely coiffed. Yeah.
Welcome to Slothville.
Yeah, you're way overdressed for this.
Well, listen. So to make it up for you guys, since I know I had to dress for SportsCenter, I actually brought gifts.
You brought gifts?
Yes.
Oh, well,
then you're fine.
Because listen, Mike and Mike is one of my favorite shows. My favorite show on the radio. So I figured
you got gifts. Anytime you bring gifts, you're more than welcome.
Mr. Golic, I realize that you're a foodie like myself,
yeah.
And you celebrated National Donut Day, so I did some research.
You didn't.
Look at this.
No, you didn't.
Today just so happens to be National Strawberry Rhubarb Pie Day.
Strawberry what?
Yeah.
Whoa!
Rhubarb pie. I made it a crisp, though, because I know you like crisps.
Look at this.
So what I did is I didn't just get one pie, I got two pie. Now, I know you had the pie caking, correct?
I did have the pie cake.
All right, so this right here, this top pie here, because I know you're a dessert guy. This is from called the Milk Bar in New York City. It's actually called crack pie. It's that good.
What is in it?
I have no idea, but it is like
don't
crack.
Say what's
Once
in it
you
is
take
what's in
one
the title.
bite, you're addicted, and that's the strawberry rhubarb underneath it.
Just let me get a whiff.
Whichever one you'd like.
I'm not going to lie. The strawberry rhubarb was very nice, but I'm not a fruit in the pie guy.
It's more of a vehicle to eat ice cream.
There you go.
That's all it is.
Well,
so
I love that thought.
He's vegetable and fruit free most of his life.
And the last gift, since last time I was on with you, we talked about Terry Collins dressed up as Mr. Met, giving the fans the finger.
Right.
Was I figured mascot, you guys, new show, you kind of need a mascot.
Okay.
So,
boy, he just comes bearing
this
gifts.
Is
This is really good stuff.
Everyone else pales in comparison.
I have to say this, though. So I'm thinking in my mind, Mike Golic, dog guy, loves his pugs.
Yeah.
I got Trey, the wind beneath my wingos. What would be the perfect mascot?
Oh, there it is.
A pug with wings.
A pug with wings.
Oh, my God.
Can
What's
I
the
just
size
say,
of that? I'm
did
going to
you
be
ever
putting
know
this
that you're
on.
my hero?
I'm going to be trying this on at the break, and that is awesome.
Wait, but
That
whoa.
is
You get
just
the pies. I get the shirt.
No. I'm wearing the shirt.
Then I take the pies.
Here's the thing.
That's the way it goes.
Here's the thing, Trey. I'm bigger than you. I'm taking them both.
Yeah, but I can outrun you. I just
can?
saw you running in from the studio. You were running like this.
That's true.
Sure
They always
that was
say
about-
head up, straight back.
You were not aerodynamic.
Whatever.
in that stance.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's
Thank you
very
for
nice
having
of
Did you
to
guys
do.
just become best friends?
I think we did.
I think you did. That's rock solid.
I just can't be in the same room as him with the way he looks.
No,
he's dressed well and he's good looking.
Look, if this was on looks, you do the entire show in a dark closet.
You're not kidding.
So, and let's just be
Wow.
clear about that. We've worked through that already. So, again, open invite whenever you want to come back.
Absolutely right.
But we are glad you're here
Yes,
today.
we are.
Because we need to figure out the Pekka Rinne mystery. Okay, why is he so good most places, and he was amazing in the two games in Nashville? Pittsburgh is like his personal house of horrors. He's 0-6 there in his career, and his
Giving up
goals
about
against
14 goals a game.
Yeah, it's like 5 a game.
5 a game.
What's going on?
Well, it's amazing when you start looking at what the home teams have done in this series. They're actually outscoring road teams 24-6.
Right.
So it's obviously home ice advantage. But Pittsburgh's one of those weird teams that and I struggled actually to play in Pittsburgh as well, is they create most of their scoring opportunities off the rush. And usually those rushes are odd man rushes. And when you get the skill like Crosby, Kessel, Malkin, I mean, those guys are some of the best goal scorers in the league. So, Pekka Rinne's probably thinking to himself, I struggled in games 1 and 2. I went as far to change my equipment. I got all new equipment. Feel good about myself. So we win game 3 and 4. Going back to Pittsburgh, he actually changes his stall in the locker room before the game to try to change up the luck. First shot is a partial breakaway from the best player in the game. Sidney Crosby hits the post, boom, right on the power play. And now, I mean, as a goalie, you're hoping, all right, let's ease into this thing, couple long shots, feel good about myself. The first goal, point shot, through his legs of all places. He's 6'5", and you get beat through your body, which is a goalie you never like to have happen. And then from there, it's just, Pittsburgh finds
Russ
ways.
with the backhand.
That was an unbelievable shot.
Unbelievable shot. Notre Damer.
And then I almost went to Notre Dame. And then Evgeny Malkin, again, second or third best player in the NHL. He comes down off the defenseman stick and in the net, and that's a wrap for Pekka
But their aggressiveness in the first 8, 10, 12 minutes of the game, they were down in Nashville's end the whole time. And I'm just amazed at did you said you struggled in Pittsburgh, but for those that don't know, Rick, goalie for the Islanders, did some team have your number?
Some building.
Some building, some place like what we're seeing here? Is this a common occurrence, maybe not to this extent that we're seeing in the Stanley Cup playoff finals for goalies? Is this something that happens a lot?
I wouldn't say a lot. For me, it was Carolina. For some reason, that building, it was a little dark in that building. I don't know if it was the team and how they played, but every time I went down there, I struggled. Billy Smith, Hall of Famer Billy Smith, was actually my goalie coach when I first started, and he used to tell me stories. There was one place he would go, and he'd actually tell the backup goalie before the game, listen, you should get mentally ready because I'm terrible here. And then every time you played in that building.
That's psyching yourself up before the game even starts.
I mean, when you win 4 Stanley Cups, I guess you can do that. It was just a night off for him, but he just knew going in, I'm not going to have any success here, so might as well let the backup know.
Wow, that's insane. So here's the question going forward. Let's assume, because the home team has won every game in this series, Nashville wins Game 6 to force a Game 7. Can you start Rinne in Game 7?
You have to.
You do.
You have to, because the only reason you saw the goalie change in Pittsburgh and it's worked is because Matt Murray was their starting goalie. He won them the Stanley Cup last year.
True.
That was Mike Sullivan's guy actually down in Wilkes-Barre in the minors. UC Saros is a good goalie, but he's not Pekka Rinne. I mean, we were talking about Pekka Rinne before the series, the guy that was going to win the Conn Smythe Trophy, and he's been unbelievable at home. You just hope that they find a way, Nashville finds a way to play better as a team in Pittsburgh, because right now, if you look at talent, pure talent alone, I mean, you could make the argument that Pittsburgh has the 4 best players on the ice.
Right. Although for the first 2 games, they were dominated by Nashville, and the difference was the goaltending. So 5 goals and 12 shots in game 1.
I thought that as well, because this wasn't the situation in Pittsburgh. I get it. So if you start Rinne, how long can it go? If you gave up a goal, a minute and a half? I mean,
it was quick.
Last night, I think it was right around a minute and a half.
It was first shift. They got a power play. They scored there.
Right.
And then,
they scored.
By the way, they hadn't scored a power play since 5-on-3 in Game 1.
So now it's Game 7. So you pulled them after 3 goals last night. So what do you do now?
Get there,
how long is the leash?
How long do you wait before you have to pull them?
I think if you're Peter Laviolette, you would have probably liked to see UC Saros go and start the second period and not let the first shot he sees into his net. I mean, he wasn't great either, but Pittsburgh's that good. You probably have a shorter leash than you would in Game 5, but again, you need more from the team. I mean, Mike Sullivan, the coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins, probably had a pregame speech where he asked the team to do certain things, and he couldn't have gotten any more from his team. Fast start. They scored on the power play. Phil Kessel was great. Crosby was great. Malkin was great. I mean, anytime you're going to get 8 points from those 3 and 5 points from your defenseman, you're probably going to win the game.
Can you tell Pekka to stop going out of the net, though, and play? And
that's a strength of his game.
That's what he does, though.
Sure, I know.
But he double pumped a couple of times.
You could tell he was uncomfortable.
Truth be known, I know he does that. I was being sarcastic because he was not doing it well.
No, he wasn't, and that was actually funny. So I'm listening to the broadcast, and I would actually so I like to handle the puck, probably too much. I actually told the GM of the Atlanta Thrashers during my meeting before the draft, he asked me, what would you like to achieve as an NHL goalie? And rather than say, I want to win a Vezina, a Stanley Cup, a Conn Smythe, I said, I'd like to score a goal. So needless to say, I was taken off their board. I wasn't drafted by Atlanta. But I would so Mike Milbury, the GM, would actually call down to the coach if I was handling the puck bad, and I would have a guy skate to my net and go, hey, stay in the net. And I'm like, what do you mean stay in the net? No, they want you to stay in the net. So then to be a jerk, I would just purposely stay in the net, and the puck would just be laying there. But, hey, you asked me to do it, I do it.
Hey, be who you are. Be who you are. All right, so take me through the mental thing, because obviously that's what it is for Pekka Rinne right now. It is a mental thing. What can you do? Because everybody's very superstitious, especially in sports. What can you do if you're Pekka Rinne to get over the mental hurdle? Because if it goes back there, he's got to be thinking, What can I do to do? What would you do if you were in his shoes to change?
What would I do? I mean, I would sacrifice a live chicken. Whatever it took, I would get.
It has to be a
priest.
live chicken, as we learned in Bull Durham. It can't be a dead chicken. It has to be a live chicken.
I actually did it for the Islanders. I ate a whole bucket of KFC before the game, and they actually won. So maybe you could try that. Listen, I mean, we're all mental as goalies to be playing the position in the first place. He's tried changing his equipment. He's tried changing stalls. I think you just have to hope because it's a Game 7 that you go in and something good happens. But right now, he can't feel good about going into Pittsburgh. And the way that Pittsburgh's playing at home, if you're the Nashville Predators, you don't feel good about going to Pittsburgh either.
Well, that is one where and we in my sport, you would have that if our offense is struggling and our defensive medium would be like, okay, we need to pick it up a little bit. That would seem to be the other players. Hey, we got to pick it up for him. We got to help him out if we're going back for Game 7 because he's struggling there.
Well, Pekka Rinne's the face of the Nashville Predators, and everything coming out of the locker room last night was how much they love Pekka Rinne and how much they're gonna rally around him. I think you'll see a great effort from this team in Game 6 just because Nashville is unbelievable right now. I'm actually mad because I thought I was going to do SportsCenter last week, so I went out and bought catfish, and my whole fridge was just full of catfish. I couldn't throw them at Matt Berry, but no.
Actually,
I think
we'd be okay with you throwing it at Matt Berry.
Sure,
I think we're fine with that.
He does act up a little bit. I just think when you get into a Game 7, you just have to hope that your best players are your best players. And unfortunately for Nashville, when you look at the series, Nashville's best players are the defensemen. Pittsburgh, their best players are their forwards. And last night, Pittsburgh's forwards were their best players.
And that's interesting. That's really the first game in this series where that happened because even though Pittsburgh won those first 2 games, Nashville was clearly the better team.
And in Game 4,
clearly the better
but
team.
Trey, in Game 4, although Pittsburgh lost that game, that was the best game they had played the series.
Agreed.
And Kessel started shooting the puck more. Crosby was better, and all of a sudden you saw what happened.
He wasn't going to let anything go. He was like the Black Knight in Monty Python on the Holy Grail.
None
shall pass.
None shall pass.
None shall pass.
Exactly right.
Daddy, where do babies come from?
Honey?
Mommy went to the store.
Oh, well, you see, there's a mommy and a daddy, right?
Right.
And see, when they call Geico, they could save a bunch of money on car insurance.
Oh, really? And that makes them happy?
Yes, that makes them very happy.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could have this talk, sunshine.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
We roll on. Mike and Mike, Trey Wingo, Mike Golic, and Rick DiPietro with us here from Han, Humpty, and Canty, which follows us on ESPN 98.7 FM in New York. Hour number 3. Have you bottomed out from the crack?
Oh, my God. Rick brought us gifts. He brought us crack pie.
Yeah. And
Where's
strawberry
it from?
rhubarb pie.
Milk bar.
Milk bar.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And he brought this shirt because I like pugs. I have a couple of pugs and a lab. Yeah. And wing beneath my wingos.
Yeah. I think the shirt was meant for me in the pie.
Well, you're not getting the shirt.
Well, I don't want it now.
You're not getting it.
I mean, it's been.
You don't have any pugs. There's a pug on this.
It's been irreparably harmed.
How? It's been filled
on
up
your
on my
It's
massive
on your body.
biceps.
That's exactly right. No,
okay.
We had Ryan Russillo in here the other day.
Yeah.
Okay, that was our massive bicep quote.
Never missed an arm day, never did a leg day.
He's Tyson Chandler.
Yeah.
He's a slice of pizza, pretty much.
He's a slice of pizza. And he probably carb loads right before that. But I got to tell you, I had 2 pieces of that crack pie, and I'm not sure I'm going to make it till 10 o'clock.
We're going to be flying high and then crashing. There's no doubt about that.
I think I crashed in the last segment.
Yeah, I think you did.
I went like this and went straight down.
Yeah,
you got a Wolf of Wall Street moment. You're like Leonardo DiCaprio on the phone.
Oh, my gosh. We're on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and then actual guests just appear, like Rick DiPietro. So there's a lot to get into with you, Rick, and we've done a bunch of the hockey, but you are a well-rounded guy. And a good-looking guy, as we can tell with the outfit you got on. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about the NBA Finals here. Mike and I started the show, and again, it's hard to do this because people are prisoners of the moment.
Right.
But if you think about it long-term, what the Warriors are about to accomplish is go through an unblemished postseason. Just like in the NHL, you got to win 16 games, although it's a little harder in the NHL because most locker rooms after a Stanley Cup playoff game look like a triage unit, and then they're out there playing the next day. In fact, I'd love to get one of your favorite stories on that because I have one of mine. Or what the Cavs are now facing, which is trying to come back from 3 down in the finals and win 4 straight to win a championship, which has never happened. So take it out of the prisoner of the moment situation that we're in because obviously with the way the Warriors are playing, it looks impossible for the Cavs. But if you had started the postseason and said you could have a team come back from 3 games down in the finals to win the NBA championship or have a team go unblemished throughout the entire run, what do you think would be more impressive?
What would be more impressive? I think if Kawhi Leonard doesn't get hurt in that series in Game 1 and they sweep San Antonio, I would say that the 16-0 is more impressive. But when you look at how good this Golden State team is,
right,
and you see what Cleveland looks like when LeBron James isn't on the floor, I would say coming back from down 3 games would be more impressive.
But that's just in this series.
In this series.
In general.
Just in playoffs, period.
If you were asked before the playoffs,
16-0.
16-0.
16-0.
Yeah.
By the way, we're losing this. We put it on the Twitter poll. It's almost at 8,200 votes. 60% says, let's see, it was worded wrong on the poll. We should throw the staff under the bus here. It says Cavs come back from 3 or Warriors 16-0 sweep, right?
Yeah.
We did it in a vacuum.
We did. So that's going to immediately make people think about right now instead of doing this in general.
With the whole thing we were doing was trying to put it in general.
Yeah,
right?
we were. And Andrea just
This
smashed
is why you
that.
can't have nice things.
Well,
we tried.
We did.
We tried, and we move on.
We ruined our pretty little pet.
So that, but not your pretty little pug.
No, there you go.
So we've moved on from
Tommy
that
boy,
one.
let's go.
We'll try and get that one correct. What's impressed you the most in the way you've seen these Warriors play?
Listen, it's the selflessness, because I think a lot of people could be turned off watching an all-star team play against this Cleveland Cavaliers team, but when you watch the way that they play the system, like you could throw a bunch of all-stars on a court and hope that things work out, but you got a bunch of all-stars, you got a bunch of MVPs on a court, and they all buy into playing a system. They all share the ball. The one play that I looked at that I thought was pretty interesting as far as, Cleveland was concerned, Kyrie, the step-back jumper, right? It was a bad shot. It was something that obviously was isolation basketball, but the one point that someone made on the broadcast was that usually, like, if that was Golden State and KD had the ball, the guys around him, the other 4 guys, there would be movement trying to help him create space. Even if Klay Thompson has to turn his head for a second and take his eye off Kyrie Irving, maybe that opens up the lane and he gets in. They're just standing there.
Right.
It's like, here's the ball, Kyrie, go
It's
get
kind of what they
basket.
do. They take turns doing that isolation ball. As far as the overall picture of what basketball and what people get turned off by now, LeBron choosing to go to Miami and Chris Bosh going there and then forming that team and then Durant doing what he did. How would that be perceived if that was done in hockey? If the stars all decided to talk amongst themselves and instead of the team creating the team, the players kind of cherry-picked where they wanted to go. How would that be perceived?
I'm not sure it's possible in the NHL. I'm not sure you have that kind of inevitability.
No, I don't think it is either, but I'm just wondering with the attitude of the player today, because we hear all the old-time basketball, we would never do that. We would never team up with guys we were playing
all the
against.
old basketball teams would also all beat the Warriors.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But so I don't think I'm with you. I don't think it'll happen. What do you think? Do you think players would do it though? The player of today as opposed to the player of decades ago?
No, I think players of today would probably do it because you realize how hard it is to win a Stanley Cup, and it's not very often that you have the opportunity. So I think it's possible. I think Washington's trying to do it right now and trying to get Alexander Ovechkin to Stanley Cup. There's some good teams, but I would definitely. But again, I mean, hockey's the one sport where you can have all the greatest talent as far as forwards and defensemen, but you see how important a goalie is in the playoffs, right? It's like if you have an average goalie and you got really good forwards up front, you still might not win it. But I think that guys would do it if it was possible in the NHL.
All right. The other thing, I want to get back to this because I do believe that winning a Stanley Cup is the hardest thing to achieve in any team sport in this country, simply because of the physical pounding that goes on. Before I came to ESPN, I was working in St. Louis, and the Blues played a tough series against the Blackhawks. And I was in the Blackhawks visiting locker room collecting post-game sound. And you go in there after a playoff game, it really does look like a mobile triage unit. I mean, people are getting stitched up. There's blood everywhere. The stink of the rink is the most accurate thing maybe in all of sports when you talk about what it smells like in a hockey locker room after a game. And they were interviewing Jeremy Roenick, and his lip was cut open to here, blood's dripping out everywhere. It's like, and one of the reporters from Chicago was like, do people understand what it takes to go through a Stanley Cup run? And he's like, I really don't think they do. Was there a moment where you were like, man, we are really just getting torched out here, but yet we got to come back and play tomorrow? Can you put it in a perspective that people can understand how hard it is, what NHL teams do to get through a Stanley Cup run?
What's amazing to me, and I don't know when it starts, but the mentality of a hockey player is so much different than most professional athletes. I'm not going to say all professional athletes, but I mean, if you guys remember, I know you guys watched a little bit of hockey. There was a game, Sidney Crosby against the Buffalo Sabres, scores one of the nicest goals you've ever seen in your entire life. He actually one-hands it with a backhand. In the same game, he's in the corner. This is the best player in the entire NHL. Gets hit in the face with a stick, and he's on the bench pulling his own tooth out, and then he gets back out and he keeps playing. Like, I don't know at what point as a young kid we're like, what's a good idea is if we break our foot and we just go in the locker room and tape it up and come back out and play. I mean, you had guys, there would be guys taking Toradol shots to practice because they needed to be out there that much. We had a game, this was actually in college, we had 4 overtime game where guys were actually missing entire periods. Like, they missed an entire overtime period. We're getting IVs. We had one guy who actually actually was playing with a partially torn ACL that he did during the game, and he just told the doctor, just tape it up, I'll get back out there.
Grant Fuhr played in a playoff game with a torn ACL when he was with the Blues. He played in a game with a torn ACL.
I just a couple of, I've seen many things on the rink from, Chicklets being on the ice. I think it was Roenick's one time when he was.
Well, you remember when Roenick, it was at Madison Square Garden, he got hit in the face, that slap shot, and his whole face was hanging off.
Yeah, so the visual of that, and unbelievably, that has to hurt. You just think of your trip to the dentist or reconstruction, whatever. But I'm going to tell you, a couple of games ago, when it was Bonino that took that shot off the inside of his ankle, I started thinking to myself, Rick, I'm like, okay, there are pads everywhere, and these guys drop in front of these slap shots. They're nuts when they do that.
Crazy.
But they're trying to get hit in the padded area. This caught him right where just the skate was and the inside of the skate. It looked like he was never going to walk again. Comes back out and plays, in that game. I don't believe we've seen him since.
No, we haven't.
In that one.
No.
Which isn't shocking to me. But I started to think, where's the worst place outside of the face? I mean, let's getting hit with a puck in the face stinks. Okay? So take away.
Thanks for clarifying that. Vulcanized rubber at 100 miles an hour to your cranial area is not a good thing.
Take that out of it. When Bonino got hit in the ankle, I started thinking, where's the worst place to catch a 100-mile-an-hour puck?
I would say for a forward, probably in the foot, the ankle bone, right above the shin pad. That muscle, the little VMO right here. If you get hit above that, because the shin pad usually cuts off, and some guys cut it down. If you
so
get
the top
there,
of the knee, you're saying,
and then you have that Charlie Horse where you can't play. Ryan Johansson's actually missed the playoffs because he had the compartment syndrome from getting kneed in the leg. Right. For a goalie, for me, it was like if you just so happen to have maybe a little bit of, not in the right place.
Right.
Take a shot.
You catch one there.
Because when I first started, I just wore one cup. Yeah. And I'm like, it's a goalie cup. Isn't that what it's for? And the veteran goalie on the team was like, how many cups do you wear? And I was like, why, am I supposed to wear more than one? He goes, you probably shouldn't. I'm like, nah, I'm fine. Yeah. Next practice, of course, because he said it. Just
they were
hanging
off on you.
Oh, my God.
And if anyone's ever gone to a doctor for an ultrasound of that area, it's probably one of the most uncomfortable things.
I was going to say, normally that would be a badge of honor. I wear 2 cups. I have to wear 2 cups.
And just so people understand, in the NFL, you wore how many cups?
I wore none.
0. Most players don't wear cups in the NFL.
No.
But I got to tell you this great story. It might be thinking about this. There was a game in St. Louis when I was working there between the Blues and I think it was Winnipeg at the time, and Keith Tkachuk took a stick to Brendan Shanahan's face, and just like unlicensed entry, cut his lip wide open in the first period, blood spewing everywhere. He goes off. He gets it stitched up. He comes back in the third period to score the game-winning goal, and then with about a minute left in the game, he finds Tkachuk and starts beating the you-know-what out of him. Just bam, bam, bam. And then we did a live shot after the game with Shanahan, and, of course, they stitched him up before he went back out on the ice. Well, now that thing is like a goiter on his lip. He has a grapefruit hanging off his lip. And I'm trying to do an interview with him. Brenda, tell me that game. And blood is just pouring out of his mouth. They actually got in calls. You have to get him off the air. But that's the hockey player's mentality.
It is.
Stitch me up, and I'm going to go out there.
I love it. I've said it before, and I'll continue to say I think the toughest guys out there. As I said, I think rugby players, MMA, I get all that, but hockey for hurt, so what? Back out on the ice. What's the worst injury you ever saw on the when you were on the ice?
Worst injury I've ever seen on the ice was probably, I have to say, to myself, and I think that's why when I said I struggled in Pittsburgh a little bit, probably my worst moment in the history of my career was in Pittsburgh. You can Google Rick DiPietro versus Brent Johnson and see why I say that. But he actually punched me in the face. It was a bad plan, first of all, because I didn't realize how big he was, but he actually broke my face. So this whole side of my face, he caved in. And the best part of that is I go in the back to see the doctors in Pittsburgh, and I thought, because it actually severed a nerve in my face, so I couldn't feel my teeth. So initially I thought my teeth were caved in. So I get in and he takes the x-ray and he goes, where does it hurt? I said, excuse me?
Yeah.
He goes, where does it hurt? I go, not so much here or here. Right around here where my eyeball is hanging out. I'm like, you really asked me that question?
Look at the side of the face that looks like a Picasso
I look like Rocky Dennis right now, and you're asking me where my face hurts.
That reminds me of the Clint Malarchuk was the worst one I
That was.
Oh, yeah.
That was,
the
man.
worst
Oh, my goodness.
all time.
That's the scariest thing of all time.
All right, again, Rick DiPietro with us from Han, Humpty, and Canty, which follows us on ESPN 98.7 in New York. Okay, so I'm glad we got that out of the way so people understand what it is like to try and win a Stanley Cup. So let's play a little over-under.
Let's.
With Rick here. So over-under brought to you by La Quinta. Book at LQ.com and win at business. All right, here we go. 0.5 games left in the NBA Finals. Over or under?
Well, obviously, we're only asking if the Cavs are going to win tonight. I think that Golden State now is on more of a mission. Cleveland's playing for pride. You play long enough, we've all been there. If you're playing for pride. Golden State now, 73 wins last year, didn't close the deal, so they feel unfulfilled. 16-0 and get the championship, obviously, I think that's a big goal for them. I think they get it tonight.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I agree with you 100%. And what's funny is if you watch LeBron James in that last game, and he almost had the look on his face. He was exhausted, but he had that look like, okay, so I have to play this well, and we lose, and now all of a sudden I got to do this 4 more times?
Yeah, but it's all his fault.
Yeah,
it's all LeBron's fault because they're...
That narrative is so stupid, too, by the way. And it's how funny that the narrative has changed with the whole Kevin Durant thing. Oh, he's bad guy for going to Golden State. Well, now all of a sudden, because he's the best player on the best team, all of a sudden...
He's the greatest player ever.
Paul Pierce, the truth juice. It was, come on, Paul.
Yeah. I'm going to go over just because I think Cleveland has one game in them just out of pride. Just out of pride. I think they're going to get it done. So, of course, I've been wrong this entire season.
There you go.
I'd like to
I'm going to have a squirrel bet on that one.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, you got to take the wildness out of it. Just ask Booker. He'll take care of that for us. All right, 2.5 titles won by the Warriors with Durant and Curry.
Wow.
Which means they got to win 3 if you're taking the over.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Just making sure.
I think I may take the over. I think they're set up for at least the next couple of years, contract-wise. Durant has already talked about taking less money to keep some of the other, not the big guys there, but some of the ancillary pieces there. So I think they can be in position to do it. So I'll go. You can't ever figure injuries. You never know when they're going to happen. But I'll say over.
I'm going to say under, and I say it for this reason. I'm not sure what Klay Thompson's going to do. I think of all the guys in that team, he's the one that probably would like to go somewhere and be the guy.
Or the man,
Or the man, like maybe a team like the Lakers. And also, we have to see what happens in San Antonio. I mean, if Chris Paul decides he wants to go to San Antonio with that coaching staff, because then we had this conversation yesterday and asked me if you guys think I'm crazy. The fact that Cleveland has the best player in the world, a lot of people argue the second best point guard in the league,
right? And
they can't even keep a game close. They can't win a game, but you give Greg Popovich, Kawhi Leonard, and some guys, and he has a 25-point lead in game 1.
Yeah.
We're all hanging on that. We're all hanging on that.
But isn't that the change, though? Like, if people keep saying, well, if LeBron James loses this, they got to blow this thing up. Well, how about you address the coaching position first and maybe have a coach that can actually coach LeBron James?
It was amazing, the thought that if Chris Paul does go to San Antonio, will it change all based on game 1 and what we saw there before Kawhi, got hurt?
I think I'm going to go under here just because that would be 3 and 4 years if that happens, right? If we do it together, because at some point the team is
unless it says Durant and Curry, unless they re-sign and stay with the money going out there, a couple of them are going to be able to stay.
Exactly, but I'm going to go under just because of the things you've talked about, maybe Paul George and maybe Chris Paul changing the dynamic, because I would have loved to have seen that series if Kawhi Leonard was healthy.
Yeah, I completely agree.
That would have been really interesting. Okay, how about this one? 0.5, and let's let Rick start this one.
Yep.
Games won by the road team in the Stanley Cup Final. Again, home teams won every game.
I'm going to take the under. And I know that Pittsburgh has actually closed these series out on the road in the Stanley Cup, but I just think Nashville at home has so much confidence. I mean, when you got, and I'm sure it's going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Garth Brooks who sings the anthem for Game 6. I was actually hoping it would be Darius that maybe sung the anthem.
Yeah, I would like
6.
to see that.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
But that's a tough place to win, and I just think that Nashville's going to give such a great effort that they'll probably win Game 6.
I'm going under on that as well. I think the whole team holds. I think Nashville wins it in Nashville, and what a party it's going to be. Again, I just love what's going on down there. But listen, Pittsburgh has championships, used to championships. It'll go back to their place for Game 7, and they'll close the deal.
I'm going to go with under as well. This will be like the '87 World Series between the Cardinals and the Twins when the home team won every single game. I think that's the way this one's headed. Okay, we were talking about this yesterday, and you actually brought it up during the break. 33-year-old Lincoln Riley is now going to be the head coach for the Oklahoma Sooners. He gets to take over because Bob Stoops is stepping down in a very favorable position. Their record last year was 11-2.
Right.
9.5 wins by Oklahoma this season with Lincoln Riley as their head coach.
I hate these questions. And they put
the questions are valid.
They put the schedule there like I'm supposed to know, in November what's going to go on. I mean, it's the dumbest question. Stanzik, did you write these?
So would you rather have less information so you
can
take it on?
God, I hate guessing wins.
Look at Stanzik again. Put Stanzik back up on TV.
I hate guessing wins.
There's the Uber driver you never wanted to pick you up. Look at that guy. Run the other way.
6-minute abs.
A stupid question.
Can't even work up a sweat in 6 minutes.
I'll go over.
You think over? You think he's going to get 10?
10 wins.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go over, too.
Yeah, the way I broke it down, I really looked at that Texas Tech matchup on October 28th, put against a November 18th matchup against Kansas. I think that's a couple of wins.
I'm going to go on the weather app and see what it's going to look like on that
smokes.
day.
What about you?
I'm going to go over. I mean, listen, there's a reason why Stoops obviously felt like this guy was capable of being the head coach. 33 years old. I guess he's definitely relatable to the players. But, I mean, they have a good team. They have a history of success. Outside of obviously that Ohio State game and a couple other games, I think they'll win more than the 9.5.
By the way, I do love the fact that you easily projected potentially 3 wins in 4 years by the Warriors over an 82-game schedule, but 1 year with every team in front of you was a problem.
No, because the Warriors are basically with the players that they have are running through the NBA. If the Warriors have the same team in 2 years, do you think they could still win it?
I don't know. All I hear is Charlie Brown adults right now.
Oh, my God.
Wah.
When did you and Stanzik become buddies?
I did. Stanzik, did we just become best friends? I think so.
A stupid question.
I'm gonna go under, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Over 18 years, Bob Stoops lost 9 home games. 9 home games in 18 years.
Notre Dame was one of them. 2012.
Notre Dame 2012. How'd that season end? Never mind. We move on.
It's vacated. Don't know.
It never happened. Poof.
Never happened.
So I'm going to say that's an impossible standard to meet up to. So I think they may drop some home games. So I think that might be the under.
You know what? I'll change my mind and go under as well. You talked me into it. God, you broke that down well.
Thank you very much. You know why? Because I had the schedule right in front of me. Okay. We move on. 1.5 NFL seasons left for Adrian Peterson, who says he wants to play till he's 37 or 38.
I'm going to go over. I think he's not going to 37 or 38, but I think he can get a couple seasons in. I mean, this guy keeps himself in incredible shape. Now, he has had a couple of injuries, certainly that have cost him. I get it. But they say he looks great down there. Now, you're looking great when you haven't got hit or anything yet and dealing with the injuries. But I think he keeps himself in great shape. I think he wants to be around for a few more years. That's a whole lot of it. And I think he could be used very well in that New Orleans offense with Drew Brees running the show. So I'll go over.
No, you're absolutely right. And he's kind of ruined it for every other professional athlete.
He has.
I mean, if you blow your ACL out.
He ruined it for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he's the closest thing to Wolverine than Wolverine at this point. I mean, he pretty much regenerates. So I'm going to also go over. I mean, if he says he wants to do it, I don't. There's no reason to believe that he won't.
Look, again, December, Christmas Eve, he tears his ACL.
Yeah.
The very next year, he almost sets a single
It's unreal.
season most rushing.
Unreal.
By the way, he also had a sports hernia that year. So he is Wolverine.
But that's the beauty of him, though, right? Like most running backs.
Deadpool without the stuff.
Most running backs, you get dung up or you're a little bit older, and they're like, you know what, there's no way he's coming back. Because he had that season after the ACL, if he gets hurt, they're like, no, he's usually actually better when he comes back from injury.
Yeah. And fresh leg.
And again,
less wear and tear.
Yeah. He got injured last year, so he doesn't have the mileage on it. And plus, he had the 15 games where he was sitting out the one of the other years. So body-wise, he's really not as old as his age indicates because he's missed all that time. Finish up over-under with this one. 1 under. Winning score at next week's U.S. Open at Erin Hills. Dustin Johnson won last year at Oakmont at 4 under. 3 others finished at 1 under.
You're the golfer here. What do you think?
Well, this is an untested venue. We've never been here before.
Right.
And I think that's going to create some uncertainty. Look, length is no longer an issue for golfers. They can blast away. When they have to think about every single shot instead of just wailing away, I think it's a problem. So I'm gonna say under, which would be over. You know what I mean?
You're going to say it's going to be at least even par.
Even par better.
Even par or worse.
Yeah. Or worse, yes.
Or worse.
Yeah, the crack pie is just killing me right now.
I say it's going to be better. It's going to be better than 1 under. I say the winning score will be 3 under.
You like 3?
Yeah,
right.
3 under.
I'm on the same page as Golic. I think that these guys.
That's a
with
tough
this
page to be on. Be careful.
It is a tough page, but when you're wearing a shirt with a pug and Trey beneath my Wingos,
there it is,
conquering the earth, and it looks like powdered donut on the shirt. I mean, I don't disagree with that.
I don't think he's ever taken that shirt off.
It's a win-win.
Yeah,
and if I do, it's not in front of you.
No, well. Let me be clear. I'm good with that. Yeah. Okay? Let's set some boundaries right away. That's a good one.
Let's ask this thing. You're going on Russillo's show later, right?
Yeah.
And we'll pass Ryan in the hallway. You think he's going to be mad at us for ripping him that he arm day every day, leg day, no day?
That's going to be his ringtone. That's his new ringtone. Every time it rings, Russillo doesn't miss arm day. Russillo doesn't. It's like that Aikman commercial. Oh, Aikman touchdown! Unbelievable. Russillo doesn't miss arm day. Russillo doesn't miss.
Some people have cankles. He has quadcles. They're the same size of his ankles.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got a T-shirt, you got the pie, and you got quad.
You are the man, Rick. Thank you very much.
I highly suggest tuning into Rick DiPietro on Han, Humpty, and Canty on ESPN 98.7.
He's the Humpty.
New York. Thank you, my friend, for being here and bringing gifts.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Can I take one moment?
Sure.
We just did over-under, and I just ripped Stanzik for the question about wins by Oklahoma. We put the whole schedule here so we can try and figure out the wins.
Yeah.
Can I go to question number 1?
Sure.
Again? 0.5, games left in the NBA Finals.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a game tonight?
Yeah.
Over.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's
way
a
to
good
go,
point.
Stanzik.
Yeah, you messed that one up, Stanzik.
Way to go, Stanzik.
We sort of let that one slide.
Yeah, I didn't.
No, you know what it was?
Actually, someone tweeted in and called it.
The crack pie got me.
Yeah, that was it.
You know what? I need the BOGO 50 after that.
There you go. That's exactly right.
We need some balancing. Woo! We got, 88 minutes I'm not sure if I'm going to make it.
We're going to do it.
We're going to get there. All right, we continue on Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and one of those is Stephen A. Smith from First Take. He joins us on said Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. I'm really mad, Mike, that I didn't get – nice job by you. On the 0.5.
Thank you very much.
Very well
Appreciate
done.
that.
All right, Stephen A. is here with us. Stephen, let's start with you. Does it end tonight?
I believe so. I believe that Cleveland basically emptied their chamber in Game 3. The LeBron playing is the way that he played, Kyrie playing the way that he played, and somehow, some way, the Golden State Warriors still managed to pull this out because of the greatness of Durant and Curry. And Klay Thompson obviously had a big-time game as well. I just think that, what I saw in terms of body language and beyond, it just gives that veneer, that appearance. Obviously, Cleveland could sit up there and show some guts, and Golden State could be a bit lackadaisical, but I don't get that impression at all. I think that they want to go 16-0 in the postseason, and I think they desperately want it to be at the expense of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I anticipate that it will end tonight. I'll be happy if it doesn't, but I think I find it hard to believe that Cleveland can come back from that Game 3 loss. I just don't see it happening.
And I agree with you. I hope it doesn't. I think it does as well. So when it does end, it's going to, whether it's tonight or the next game or whatever, when Golden State wins this series, what in your mind will be the fallout for both teams? What will we be saying about Golden State and Kevin Durant, and what will we be saying about Cleveland and LeBron James?
Well, what we're going to be saying about the Golden State Warriors, that they're a great team. They're in the conversation to be one of the greatest teams ever. We're going to talk about the superstar that Kevin Durant has emerged as, even though I always have believed that he is, which is why I had such a huge problem with him going and joining the team that beat him in the Western Conference Finals last year, because he wasn't some average player or some glue piece or anything like that. This is one of the top 2 players on the planet as far as I'm concerned. So for him to already join the greatest shooting backcourt in the history of basketball, I just thought was pretty much unfair. And I think that we're seeing it come to fruition and really have that point proved. We'll be talking about Golden State in that light. But ultimately, you're not going to be able to take anything away from Kevin Durant because he's the best player on the best team, and he's performed better than anybody on the biggest stage. And so he's validated his greatness. I think in that regard, that's what you say about them. As it pertains to the Cleveland Cavaliers, obviously they've got to go back to the drawing board because everything is about being able to beat whoever the champion is. And in this case, it would be the Golden State Warriors. And clearly as a team, as presently constructed, they're not going to be able to do it. They're going to have to go out there in the offseason, whether it's a Paul George or Carmelo Anthony or whomever. They're going to have to get an additional piece to what they have in order to be able to compete legitimately with the Golden State Warriors. And we'll also be talking about LeBron. And I know that you guys have a problem with it. Love y'all both, but I don't care. The bottom line is very, very clear. All of this conversation about him being the GOAT officially comes to an end. As far as I'm concerned, it was never the case because it was always Michael Jordan, but it definitely will have that fact cemented now because he'd have this sweep on his resume that would end that conversation in my mind.
Well, you know what? We love you too, but we don't care that you disagree with us as well. So I guess that's the way this relationship works. There's love and not really caring whether you agree with us or not. Because here's why that doesn't bother me, Stephen A. Because we all know that when he took that 2007 Cavs team, that was the worst team in the history of basketball to get to a finals.
Yeah. Right.
He's averaging a triple-double this series. And in that Game 3 loss, when he was on the floor for 46 minutes, they were +7. In the 120 seconds that he took off, they were -12.
They're -12.
I mean, what can a guy get to 120 seconds without his team completely falling apart?
That's fair, but let me go back. Let me challenge you guys from this perspective because I know you guys know sports. You can look at it from a numbers perspective and stop there. I don't. I am not holding the San Antonio Spurs final against him at all. You can hold Dallas against him, however. There is no doubt about that. And you definitely would be able to hold this one against him. When you talk about a conversation about the GOAT, the greatest of all time, there's no insult by saying that you're not that, even though you're everything else. you're just saying that that's not a Michael Jordan-esque kind of thing, because 6 NBA Finals MVP, never allowing a series to get to a Game 7, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all the things on his resume. Of course, you can talk about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when you're talking about the greatest, but I'm thinking about big men, and I put them in a separate category. When you look at LeBron, however, getting back to him, not only is he on the verge of getting swept in these finals, fellas, I would ask you to remember how it is happening. The person he is defending, the person he is going against, happens to be a dude by the name of Kevin Durant, who's averaging 34, 10, and 6, shooting 56% from the field, 52% from three-point range. And by the way, he is also scoring during money time, outscoring LeBron James 31-11 in the fourth quarter. Now, listen, I don't know about y'all, but when I think about champions and I think about the GOAT, I think about folks who show up in pressurized moments. The ball is in their hand. When everything breaks down, everybody knows what the other person is going to do, and they look you in your face and they say, what you going to do about it? And in the end, that is what Kevin Durant has done. And to me, that is why that ends that conversation.
Well, look, I'm not saying he was going to be the GOAT anyway. I'm going to go with Jordan, but I don't think anything in this series is the reason that that's the case. And by the way, I love the fact that you didn't want to talk numbers and you just spewed a bunch of numbers on Kevin Durant. So I do appreciate that. Hold on. I'll let you go. Hold on. Let me just say this, and then we'll allow the floor to resume. Okay. Look, the idea that Michael Jordan made every big shot is simply not true. He passed it off to Paxson. He passed it off to Kerr. So that has something to do with this as well. I just don't think anything in this series would be the reason he's not the GOAT, because the Showtime Lakers were a pretty good team. They got swept. Dan Marino, some people still think he's the greatest quarterback of all time. His last playoff game, he lost 62-7. I don't think people are thinking that's the reason he isn't.
Well, I'm here for you, Trey. I'm here for you. Here's the deal.
And I appreciate it.
Tell me one time. And I know you do. Here's the deal. First of all, I never said that Michael Jordan always took the last shot. Of course, he gave it to Paxson.
No, I think people just don't realize that sometimes.
That's fair. But what I would respond to you is this. Michael Jordan goes up against Magic Johnson and win his first championship. We all saw what he did to Clyde Drexler and those boys in Portland for his second championship. He beats Barkley for his third championship. He beats Karl Malone and John Stockton for 2 more, and in between that, he beat Gary Payton and Sean Kemp. Every single individual challenge that Michael Jordan faced, he answered the bell. Now, LeBron has been underdog before. He's overcome tremendous odds. He beat Kevin Durant when he was a baby. Remember, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook were 23 when they played in the finals 6 years ago. Serge Ibaka and James Harden was 22. Reggie Jackson was 21. They were all on the same team, but they were babies. He goes up against Dirk. You saw what happened. He goes up against San Antonio, played well. Ray Allen comes save the day. The next year, Kawhi Leonard steps up. They're the MVP. He doesn't have help because Kevin Love gets hurt in the postseason, and then Kyrie goes down in Game 1 of the NBA Finals when he lost 2 years ago when Golden State won. But Iguodala was the MVP. And then last year, he balled out. He was absolutely sensational. But you look at it from the perspective that I'm grabbing, is that at some point in time, your individual greatness, because that's what we're talking about, is defined by moments. It's defined by a challenge you're being faced against. When you're going up against Steph Curry, you're not really guarding him. He's not really guarding you. Okay? When you're going up against Tim Duncan, the same applied. When you were going up against Dirk, the same applied. This is really the first time that LeBron James has went against somebody perceived to be somewhere in the vicinity of being on his level. And even though he's answered the bell with numbers, that other dude has answered it with numbers while they've been guarding each other. And, oh, by the way, unlike LeBron, he's not fading in the fourth quarter. Now, in fairness to LeBron, he doesn't have as much help. He's probably fatigued. Nobody needs to excoriate him because of that. But the reality is that Kevin Durant walked into this series saying he's the king. He has the crown. I'm coming for his crown and the NBA crown. And he is in the process of taking it. And you know what we have as a backdrop for LeBron James, fellas? We have him starting off the series before one game was played saying, I don't even want to answer any questions about the Golden State Warriors because it's too stressful. That's a quote. That's a quote from LeBron. It's too stressful to deal with to start off the series, and then during the series when they asked him was he tired, he said, hey, I'm averaging a triple-double. I'm just fine. So in other words, I'm getting my numbers. I'm doing my thing. I don't know what the hell the rest of these guys are doing. Fellas, that's not what champions do.